Hello and welcome to the first of the newsshooter.com live discussions here on the Teradek booth at NAB 2013, and we are incredibly lucky to have with us today Bob Camelia of Blackmagic Design, who is here to answer your questions and our questions about the brand newly announced 4K and pocket cinema cameras. So I'm also joined by our technical editor, Matt Allard. I'm sure all of you know who he is. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's tell us all about the new camera.
Great. So thanks for having us. So we introduced two new cameras to the Blackmagic line. The first being the Blackmagic Production Camera 4K. And then, of course, we also introduced the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera. So the 4K camera is essentially the same version as the current Blackmagic cinema camera.
Yeah, this is not the 4K one.
This is the Blackmagic cinema camera. Right. So the new 4K version is the same in the sense that it's got the EF mount, but it has a super 35mm global shutter sensor. And it has 4 gig SDI, or 6 gig SDI out on the SDI output. So we basically have put in a super 35mm sensor into the current body. So
it's a CMOS sensor, right? Or is it a CCD?
No, I'm not sure. We haven't.
Said.
Yeah, we haven't really said that. We just said what size it is and that it has the global shutter.
I mean, we had a quick play on the booth earlier, and for those of you who haven't already seen, there's a video already posted on newsshooter.com where you can actually get to see the camera, and Matt discusses all the operation of it. So if you haven't seen it, click across now and watch that. But the image did look pretty impressive. I was blown away, actually, to be fair.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has 12 stops at dynamic range. You know, it records in ProRes 4K, and also there's a visually lossless compressed Cinema DNG RAW as well, all on the SSD drive. So it's, you know, recording to the SSD drive, the same I/O. And the beauty, like for instance, this rig will fit on that 4K camera.
The form factor is
exactly the same. Yeah, and when you're on the booth, it's sometimes difficult to distinguish between them if you don't see the front, because the front has a 4K you know, name on the front badge of it. So you know, the menu structure, everything is exactly the same as the current camera.
Yeah. So let's get into it, Matt. I'm sure you've got 1,000 questions.
I'll try not to grill you too hard.
Oh, that's all right.
So this is Blackmagic's basically their second generation of cameras.
Correct.
So has Blackmagic learned a lot from mistakes in the past? I know, you know, coming up from a camera from scratch is a very, very difficult thing to do. So
right.
Have you learned a lot of lessons from the first generation version?
Well, absolutely. I think that, you know, I mean, one of the big problems with our inability to deliver last year was a sourcing problem that was sort of outside of our control. Technically, we were finished and shipped on time. We just couldn't ship in the volume. So obviously, those sorts of issues need to be dealt with. You know, as you go forward, selecting components that you're, you know, so you don't have another problem like that. We've been able to add certain some features since the original announcement, and that was always the idea, that we would have software upgrades, and we continue to do some of those. I know that there was a problem with the Infinity Focus at one point, and it was because we were too strict on our tolerance. And but we will, you know, update someone's camera, you know, to allow for the glass that they're using if need be on the current model. Yeah, so and learning on a few things. I mean, adding a super 35mm sensor with a global shutter, you know, to adjust to you know, get a 4K for 4K. I mean, it's $39.95. And then on the other side, I mean, this is great for doing some serious work. But if you wanted a smaller camera to run out but still shoot high quality cinema images, that's where the pocket camera came from. So going higher and lower, you know, in terms of size and output, and that's where it is. And it leaves the current camera right in the middle where we want it.
So the Blackmagic cinema camera, you know, you guys basically, a lot of people in the past have promised 4K for 4K and it's never eventuated. You're the first people to do it. I think a lot of people out there expected super 35mm sensor to be announced here, but I'm pretty sure nobody expected that it was going to be 4K and it was going to be global shutter, because if you look out there on the market, there is nothing that's under about $30,000 that has a global shutter. So how are you able to do this for so cheap?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that Grant Petty's the CEO of the company, he has wanted to enable the masses to be able to get the great tools in anybody's hands, you know, whether it's a film student, or, you know, anyone. And so we work very hard. Our manufacturing techniques are second to none. I mean, you know, we do very high volume. We have, you know, unbelievable guys working on design and the ability to make manufacturing go as fast so that we can, I mean, you know, setting the sensor side, you know, we had plenty of bodies to put things in. You know, we really have an efficient production line, and that's really the key. I mean, if you look at some of the other products that we've taken, like Teradek and some of the others that were 50, 60,000, and we make it for 2, and how do you do that? You know, well, it's really about modern manufacturing and techniques. So yeah.
And a pocket camera, I think, is going to be extremely popular given the price of $995 and the small size and its versatility. It's actually got an extra stop of dynamic range over the 4K model.
Yeah, absolutely. It has the same 13 stops of dynamic range as the cinema camera, and it's you know, the 16 millimeter size, Super 16 size of the sensor allows an active MFT mount allows people to take old 16 millimeter film cameras, use the same glass, and have the same sort of shooting experience, which I think is great for everybody. I mean, schools, you know, anyone. So, yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, I personally like the idea of having something small. You know, if I'm shooting a family event, you know, this looks a little much, maybe.
So, you know, for those who don't know, because they haven't watched the video yet, the pocket camera, just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the pocket camera is very small. It's you know, it's about this big, and it has a removable battery that creates a good grip handle, and it's you know, there's no plastic parts. It's magnesium alloy. You know, it's really rigid. It has a mic input, headphone jack, length control, a mini HDMI output that you can put with. You can use the overlays or turn them off. And of course power. The battery is removable, and it's a standard battery that people can buy. It comes with one. It records on an SD card, so you get about 50 minutes of record time on a 120 gig drive.
And most importantly, certainly for me anyway, it's got a Super 16 sensor and a micro 4/3 active lens mount.
Correct, and that, you know, that really opens up to a number of lenses with adapters and whatnot. As I said, you know, the Super 16 cameras, film cameras, use those lenses, so it's great.
And I was saying, you know, right about 9:30 this morning, there's probably a very large run on eBay on anything that was old Zeiss, old Canon Super 16. I'm sure those lenses, people had almost tossed them away. Now they're going to be crying out for them, I think.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, there's a lot of glass out there that can be reused in a great way, because, you know, it is a cinema camera. It's not a video camera. It really is, you know, and Resolve Light works with that camera because it goes to HD, and then of course the full version of Resolve works with the 4K and the cinema camera.
So just to clarify too, both cameras have full manual audio controls.
So yes, because the 4K camera has an EF mount, so it has the active EF mount, and then the pocket camera has a micro 4/3 active.
And it's mini HDMI out on the pocket camera, is it?
On the pocket camera.
Yeah.
And is that 8-bit, 10-bit? Do we know?
I'm not sure, but probably. I couldn't.
Well, I mean, it's recording 422 ProRes internally. That's correct.
Correct. Yeah. Or raw.
Well, to the SD card. Not
yeah.
So there's no real
there's no benefit
point going to an external
that's
recorder.
purely for monitoring.
No. You would because you get pretty good record time on the.
But for those who haven't seen it, I mean, it really is impressive just how small it is. I mean, how have you got this camera so small? And, you know, when you do all, you know, people always talk about with cameras like ProRes cameras, heat dissipation. Where does the heat go? How does it last? How long does it go for without it stopping working?
You know, we really did, our design team, you know, Grant said, you know, he wanted to be small, and those guys said it was the most complex project they've ever undertaken, because inside it looks like an origami, you know, circuit boards or whatever, but they really, you know, spent a lot of time getting it to the right form factor, the right feel. And it really is an impressive engineering feat that they were able to do it. And of course, we have the assembly lines to be able to build them that way. So I think that's, you know, key also.
We had a lot of feedback on Twitter from a lot of people who are reading our articles, and a lot of them want to know if I've pre-ordered a regular Blackmagic Cinema camera and I've already paid for it, or I've just delivered one, is there anything they can do about that in terms of getting a new one?
Right. Well, in terms of the way they pay for it, they don't buy direct from us.
Yeah.
That would be something they have to take up with their reseller. But in the sense that we anticipated that there may be some people that would want to cancel that and then order this, which is no problem at all. I mean, we're not going to hold anyone to a pre-order by any means. And we anticipate it. And when you think about, especially in the 4K realm, that it's the same body, so those parts are easily reused or whatever. So that was something we anticipate. And when you think about it, if you're a company or manufacturer and you bring out a new model, you would rather that you be the one to supersede your prior model than someone else. So in this case, we went high and low and tried to get three models.
I've got a few questions here from Twitter. Actually, one quick one from me. We didn't check this. What are the frame rates on the Pocket model, and what are the frame rates on the 4K model?
So the same as the current 24, 25, 2997, and 30.
Okay, and output on the SDI is what?
On the 4K, on the Ultra HD, you can get Ultra HD out on 6 gig SDI.
And is that an interlaced preview, or is that actually a progressive?
It's progressive. It's the same output, and it has, you can put the overlays on or turn them off.
Okay.
Is the ISO, the amount of ISO you can put in there gone up or down, or does it stays constant, the same as the other camera?
On the 4K, I haven't actually seen the range. I believe it's the same as the current camera.
Okay, I'm going to fire away. I've got lots of people asking questions. A question from No Money for Beer, or from Woody. Does the compact come with Resolve in the way that, because the current, this model and the 4K come with a free copy of Resolve?
So the way we've said is that it comes with Resolve Lite because it works in HD, and that's what so it comes with Resolve Lite, or you can download Resolve Lite, but it doesn't come with the full version. The full version is $995, so essentially that wouldn't make the math work.
It's a free camera. It would be a completely free camera. Nobody would ever buy Resolve on its own ever again.
That would be difficult. But no, so and it only, I mean, you can obviously move to it, but it does come light.
Okay. I've got a question here from Mr. Sam Morgan-Moore, a persistent friend of ours from Twitter, who wants to know. Okay, so he says Canon lens mount, okay, but what about Sony E or other sort of mirrorless lens mounts on the 4K model?
Oh, on the 4K. So the 4K, we are, the EF mount was what we chose because the body and the size of the lens, the sensor, we couldn't put an MFT mount on it. So it's, we had to pick the EF mount for that.
But I mean, that's going to give you some problems in terms of mounting certain PL lenses, I guess. Even with adapters, you can't get every PL lens. Right.
I mean, and at some point, we had to go for the most common form and what we could do in this body style.
Okay. I mean, online there seems to be all sorts of people talking about with the previous camera about doing, almost taking a hacksaw to it, and performing sort of surgery to get their PL lens mounts working and everything else.
I think that would be difficult, and I don't know that the tolerance that wouldn't be. I don't. We hope people don't do that.
Has Blackmagic got any plans in the future? I don't know if you can allude to this or not, of making any other accessories, like maybe an EVF or something along those lines?
I mean, obviously we don't talk about anything in the future, but what our philosophy has always been is that we've enabled the third-party manufacturers to build, and they're doing a nice job. I mean, there's a lot of different options, and so we try to stay into the core of what we do and allow the third-party markets. And even on our booth, we have display cases of the third-party solutions that have been out there, and some of them are really nice. So I don't know that we would get into it's not really. I
mean, I've used this camera. This is actually my camera down here, and we've now tricked it out with all sorts of third-party stuff, and it is working, much better, I would say, as a production camera now that we have a good EVF with audio level metering and a hand grip. But even so, I guess few users, quite a lot of users, are still asking for things like audio level metering in the camera. Are we going to see that?
I don't know that if we will or not. I know that we obviously with our own forum and other forums, we get a lot of feedback. Some of the things that we've done already have been the outreach from users. The MFT mount for the current Blackmagic Cinema camera was one of those because because of the hacksaw idea. You know, we didn't want people to get into doing that. So yeah, I can't really say exactly what's coming forward, but I know that we're always working on updates. Best we can.
There's also been a bit of speculation from Matt and myself about whether you'll ever bring out the passive MFT version of this camera, or whether you're now just going to bring out an active one. Can you answer that?
Oh, we've actually started to ship some of the passive MFTs. They are in the hands of some beta testers and whatnot, and so I think that we'll see some of those starting to ship. You know.
How long before we see an active model, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, but you're officially members of the 4/3 group now, or the Micro 4/3 coalition.
I
think that was announced a few months
ago.
later.
I believe it was. Yeah.
So for people out there who have an existing model like this, there's still a place for it, definitely, isn't there? Because if you don't want to deal with 4K and that sort of thing, which a lot of people don't because it requires extra grunt and maybe a better computer, still the 2.5K is the way to go.
Absolutely, because when you think about it, if you're shooting 2.5K for 1080, then you have some room, latitude, and in shooting uncompressed RAW, I mean, that's really a great way to shoot for effects and things like that. So I really think that there is a need for all three of them.
Actually, as I said to Dan earlier, there's no excuses anymore, is there, for any filmmakers? The tools are all out there now, 4K for 4K, there's no excuse to...
Yeah, you did what a certain other manufacturer that shall remain anonymous at this point, although everybody knows, said they would do and then didn't, and you've somehow managed to pull it off, and in Super 35, which is
yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that we're so proud of, the ability to do exactly what we were hoping to do at a price point that makes it realistic for as many people as possible.
Back to the 4K thing, so a couple of people have asked, are there any crop modes? Is there the ability to shoot 2.5K or 1080 on the 4K camera?
You can shoot 1080, 2.5K, no. That was sort of in between from the other sensor.
And would the 1080 be exactly the same quality as from the 2.5K? Have you seen any sort of?
Yeah, it's so new that the camera's not going to be ready to ship until July. So these are the first ones coming over. So we haven't really gotten into being able to do too much of that. We are showing it live on the stand, showing it on Ultra HD.
But the spec that you've got, it's locked now for July ship, or is shipping, or is it? Is there still room for?
No, the ship date. No, I think the ship date. We're very confident that that we're going to be as close to that as possible, given assuming there's no craziness that comes up. But as we did last year, we tried to deliver what we said we would deliver, and then later we could add other features. And unfortunately, because of the delay, we actually added features before some people even got their camera, which was a side benefit.
Okay, a couple more questions. Tim L, whose Twitter handle I just can't read, but we'll stick with Tim, asks why no DNX HD? That was just, I'm not sure what long term, whether we'll add that or not, but this is what we got. It's one of those things you can only certify so much in the time frame that we had, and we were able to get the ProRes and the Cinema DNG, so you got to come out with that. Okay, Larry Wright has a question, or two. He's got about 4 questions, but I'm not going to ask all of them. Are there any plans for a high frame rate option on the 4K, and if not, why not?
Right. So at this time, we're not announcing it, I think that high frame rates, have other issues in terms of the ability to record it on the SSD drives and heat and some of those issues. So, we're not saying anything about higher frame rates other than the frame rates that we're doing now. And,
is the sensor capable, do you think?
I don't know. That would only be one side of it. It's whether the camera is capable, and so at this point we haven't done any other than the standard rates.
A more practical question, I guess it refers not just to the 4K and the Pocket, but this one. Are there any plans to show storage capacity on the LCD screen? I.e., the problem with this camera is that you don't know when you're shooting how much space you've got left on your card or your SSD before you run out.
Right. It's interesting. I always know, when I shoot with mine, I know that if I have whatever number drive I have, I know how much time I have to record just based on, and that's something that we have tried to, provide those kind of timings. But also, you know, it depends on your frame rate as to whether or not you're going to, you know, how much time. So in terms of providing that kind of feedback, I mean, it's definitely a question that's already been sort of put into the pool of requests, feature requests. Whether we do it or not, I don't know if we could, you know, but we do have this policy of trying to add features as much as possible down the road, and, you know, if we can.
Okay, we're running out of time. We have another very important guest to come on in a second. A couple of last sort of thoughts, really. Where's the best place to order this thing? Where are you going to get one?
Well, I mean, any of our resellers are taking orders. Which camera are we talking? I mean, you know,
I guess any of them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the new camera is obviously not shipping yet. We have tried to implement, you know, first come first serve basis in terms of the resellers that order. You know, again, I think that if we were able to deliver as many as we had built to be able to deliver the first time, we wouldn't have this, well, I don't know where to get it. So I think that when we go to ship the next one, we're not going to ship a small number. You know, when we're going to ship, we're going to ship a larger number and not take the risk that we took last time, I'm sure.
Okay, that's good to hear.